This is about W.E.B. Du Bois, or Dubois, but I think it's Du Bois, so I've heard it such, and that's what I'm going with. A magazine article caused me to read The Souls of Black Folk by W.E.B. Du Bois. I own a copy of it, but curiously, I don't believe I've ever read it. Had I read it, I would certainly remember doing so, for I would call it an unforgettable book. I'd call it a book with a footprint. I was expecting to be addressed by a high-pitched polemicist. There was no shortage of them then, and there is no shortage of them now. But his book is anything but that. It's written by a careful historian who is always painting pictures so we may see, and collecting evidence that we may believe, not tossing off half-cocked theories, accusations, and arguments. When he disagrees with the approach of Booker T. Washington, he does so respectfully and thoroughly and convincingly. The author is no rabble-rouser. He's a gentleman. He can bite, but there is almost a tenderness in his approach to even the most appalling racial inequalities, what he calls poison. He has a deep regard for language, and one of the words he holds in the highest esteem is courtesy, and he embodies it, so far as I can tell. I've learned that he was a diminutive figure, a dandy in dress and grooming, and he greatly preferred to be addressed as Dr. Du Bois. I think he was the first black to graduate from Harvard. I know he was one of the founders of the NAACP. He dedicated his book, which is a collection of essays, to his dead son and living daughter. He called them The Lost and the Found. The chapter devoted to the death of his baby boy is heartfelt and moving, and it's an intricate part of the work. This is a book about souls, and it has soul. It's soulful. Du Bois considers the color line. He calls it long, deep, and hard. He calls it the problem of the 20th century. Obviously unsolved, it is with us still. He writes about trying to lift 4 million former slaves to freedom, a formidable task under ideal conditions and a complete impossibility after the death and destruction of the Civil War. All efforts then were doomed to fail. The Civil War led to a racial feud, unofficially declared, nonetheless real, a fight the blacks could not hope to win, a fight they could not stand to lose. Du Bois is very analytical. Time and again he describes how blacks have been put into extremely unfair and unfavorable circumstances, and then they are derided when they fail, or are unable to compete. He examines the housing of blacks and whites and finds them completely segregated, the blacks residing in poorly built shacks and filthy hovels. In economy, he compares the wretched status of the free man, who knows nothing but penury and debt, to the white man, who prospers under capitalism. Education is yet another wedge. Under political activity, blacks find no protection, only humiliation and oppression. When it comes to informal social contact or religious worship, there is total separation under what Du Bois calls the veil. Is there an increase in criminal activity among the Negroes? Yes, Du Bois says, and it will become increasingly vicious, he says, as reaction to their treatment will lead only to revolt, revenge, bitterness, and anger. Yet he does not give way to this. He keeps his temper. He understands that getting worked up emotionally and getting excited about the problem prevents us from advancing to its solution. This is very much a book about the souls of black folk, their suffering and their songs. It is also about the souls of white folk. Do people have souls, some vestige of divinity that might cause them to pursue high ideals like goodness, beauty, and truth instead of wealth, and wealth alone? Money won't help the Negro, Du Bois says. They need understanding and sympathy, decency and good faith, love and wisdom, patience and intelligence, a sincere desire for their success. That's a lot to ask, maybe too much. Too often he finds careless ignorance and laziness among his people, fierce hatred and vindictiveness among the whites, all the very opposite of courtesy. A black person is two people, an American and a black. It's a terrible burden to bear. His son was born one person and died one person, never knew what it was like to live under the veil, the sole blessing of his early demise. Here lies the tragedy of the age, Du Bois writes. Not that men are poor, all men know something of poverty. Not that men are wicked, who is good? Not that men are ignorant, what is truth? Nay, but that men know so little of men. And he might have said, and care so little for them too. We argue over policy. It is at the level of the soul that we have failed.